All right. Well, we will get started. Uh, Welcome. My name is David Hunsinger. I'm Director of Sales here at Specialized Business Solutions, and welcome to Keystroke Live. It's Wednesday, January 29th, and today we are going to talk about the Merchant Warehouse Genius. And just so everybody knows, it looks like people are remembering this is Wednesday and not Thursday. We switched it at the 1st of January here, and I will also mute everybody, and then if you have a question, you can either send it to me via chat or we will unmute everybody at the end so that we can ask questions. And today we're going to talk about the Merchant Warehouse Genius, and we have Jason Sherman and Maggie Crowley, and I believe Ian may be there in the room as well, and they are going to tell us all about it. So without further ado, I will pass it off to Jason. And I think I've got you unmuted. Can I hear you?
We are here.
Okay. And you are the presenter now.
All right. Let's get this set up.
Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Let's give us 2 seconds while we get this to show up on the right screen.
We did test this morning, so hopefully we're not stumbling around too much. But
there we go.
GoToMeetings have to catch up with us.
And while we're doing that, here is, just so everybody gets a glimpse of it, the Merchant Warehouse Genius device. Pen on this side, card swipe over here. Let me know if I need to go grab somebody to help. I shouldn't have gone back to my computer, huh, Jason?
Well, we tried to have it up on a projector in here so we can watch as well.
Oh, okay.
That was just giving us a little issue, but I think we'll have it up in about 1 sec.
And so I am here in Colorado, but Jason, Ian, and Maggie, you are in Boston, right?
Yes, we are.
Right downtown.
Yeah, how about those Patriots?
Yeah, they're hanging out playing golf. I saw the photos on Boston.com, though. Marty Walsh, the new mayor, he was wearing his Broncos jersey the other day. He manned up on his bet.
All right.
Which was pretty good. So is that showing for everybody? Can you guys see the screen?
Yes, we can. So take it away.
All right. All right, so we'll try and make this pretty informal, so any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But basically, we're going to go through, talk to you guys a little bit about Merchant Warehouse and kind of what's going on over here very briefly, and then we'll break out into Genius, talk about them a little bit more as well. So basically, just a quick overview of us. Like David had said, we are located right downtown in the heart of Boston's financial district. Down with all the history, all of the fun stuff that happened down here. The company was founded in 1998. We've been in the payment industry for about 15 years now. Currently, we've got over 300 employees dedicated to your success. Our main office is located down here in 1 Federal Street, right in downtown Boston. We're actually the entire 2nd floor. It's a huge office here. It's about 43,000 square feet. Then we've got our own risk department, about a half an hour south of here in Hingham, Mass. We keep that separate for obvious reasons. And then we actually just opened a new office in Belfast, Northern Ireland, which we're extremely proud of. We've got a lot of development going on over there, as well as after-hours client services. So very excited about those recent openings. A little bit else, right now we've got over 125,000 merchants that we've worked with, many of which are still working with us. And of course, over $8 billion in processing volume. So over 12 million transactions per month. So we are certainly running tons of transactions. So now we'll talk about some of the benefits and kind of how we separate ourselves from the competition. So one thing that I know is huge in the industry is we underwrite our own accounts. So we actually keep as much in-house as possible to make sure that your merchants are having the best experience. You know, we want to control as much of that as possible. So as opposed to outsourcing our underwriting, we actually control that in-house, gives us greater flexibility. Also, like I had mentioned in Hingham, we manage our risk monitoring in-house. So we have a much better idea of what merchants are doing, gives us a much easier idea to flag a transaction if it's, you know, if a coffee shop runs a transaction for $5,000, you know, that's when we're going to flag and reach out to the merchant and check with them, make sure it was legitimate. And of course, that all leads to fast approval times, which you guys all know is extremely important to a merchant because they're just great at waiting till the last minute. Of course, we want it to be easy for you and your merchants to do business with us. We'll help out with the start-to-finish sales process with free cost comparisons. So definitely, you know, the merchants you guys are speaking with, the majority of them are currently processing credit cards. Every merchant out there always feels they've got the best rate on the planet. We're always happy to provide a cost comparison for them, show what they're paying currently, what they would be paying with us. And of course, that does include a meet or beat pricing guarantee. So we are able to meet any pricing that your merchant has, probably going to beat it. You guys are able to access all materials through a comprehensive partner portal, as well as submit leads, track leads, and access residuals. Dedicated support teams, I'm sitting here with 2 of them right now, and anything that you guys need, of course, we're there for you. As far as solutions go, direct integration to multiple models. Genius, of course, is the preferred method. Numerous processing options, including gift cards. With Genius, you're able to do EMV, NFC, and all the mobile payments that are coming out. And of course, secure and PCI compliant processing. As far as merchant care goes, fast, free, and easy account setups. Again, we do not want it to be a hassle for merchants to sign up. We want it to be something that's so easy, they recommend it to their friends. Of course, award-winning around-the-clock merchant support, and no contracts or hidden fees. You know, unless we were running some sort of a promotion, which you guys would obviously be aware of, we're not setting merchants up with hidden fees. You know, we're not locking them into ridiculous contracts with multi-$100 cancellation fees. So now let's take a look at a very quick video that the marketing department put together, which kind of explains the concept of Genius and a little bit about what it's capable of. Then we'll go into it in a little more detail.
There's nothing consumers love more than feeling like they got a deal. They spent $5.4 billion through mobile coupons last year, a number projected to grow to $43 billion by the end of this year. You heard me right, $43 billion. When you consider that 93% of all U.S. retail volume goes through brick-and-mortar stores, the possibilities for growth as a small business are staggering. Besides the latest deals, consumers demand convenience, and with the boom of smartphones, have become accustomed to a tailored user experience. To make it even more interesting, 6 out of 10 consumers believe that smartphone payments will replace both card and cash transactions for a majority of purchases. With the methods of payments and strategies for offers and loyalty programs changing so rapidly, it may seem risky to take a chance on the latest trends. It shouldn't be. With the Genius Customer Engagement Platform, you can expand the ways that you engage your customer without the risks that used to be associated with them. Genius provides a single platform that enables you to try different payment types, programs, and offers, all updated via the cloud. So for starters, why not pull customers into your store with offers when they're nearby and most likely to stop in? Who knows? Maybe they'll bring friends. With SMS, merchants can push offers to customers and guide them to in-store deals. The power of convenience can quickly turn a browser into a buyer. Once they decide to check out, Genius offers the flexibility of payment type to provide easy for you and the user to tap into new payment types, loyalty programs, and offers. All transactions are encrypted, and Genius is completely PCI compliant, so there's zero exposure of customer data. So from bringing customers in the door to directing them to deals once they're on site, all the way to checkout, engage your customers like never before and grow your business. Turn transactions into interactions with the Genius Customer Engagement Platform by Merchant Warehouse.
All right, so that was more of the 50,000-foot big overview. Now let's go ahead and jump on to the next slide. We'll talk about it a little bit more on how it relates to you guys and your merchants. So we like to look at Genius from 4 different angles in regards to what it offers your merchants. First of which is flexibility. We certainly realize different merchants have different needs, designed with flexibility in mind. First off, Genius gives merchants unlimited payment acceptance. It'll allow them to accept all the traditional payment types, cash, credit, debit cards, mobile payments, so your digital wallets, smartphone payments, as well as contactless payments. This is important to a merchant for 2 main reasons. First of which, they're not going to have to turn away a customer and make sure that they miss out on a sale because they don't accept their payment method. Also, by accepting their preferred payment method, they're much more likely to return and pay again. You guys all know that's what merchants are after. Also, Genius is an EMV-ready, so left EMV cards well ahead of the October 2015 deadline. This is going to be a massive headache for all the merchants who wait till the last minute. With Genius, merchants are able to have a solution in place well ahead of the deadline and get their staff up to speed before it's too late. We'll talk about it as we roll through. Also, security. This is something we take very seriously, and obviously right now with all the stuff in the news, Target, Neiman Marcus, something merchants are going to be asking about. One thing that I know is extremely appealing to you guys is the POS is taken out of scope. This is because Genius is a fully validated PADSS solution which prevents any sensitive info from passing through the point of sale. This means the hackers aren't going after Keystroke to steal card data. This also offers complete security for all transactions. With tokenization of sensitive information and point-to-point encryption at the point of the swipe, there's nothing to hack. Someone was able to access the data, everything is completely truncated and useless. And of course, Genius reduces the risk of potential card-based fraud. With consumers performing their own transactions, the card or phone never leaves their hands, which removes the possibility of staff members cloning or skimming cards. And one thing I know that's extremely appealing is that does emulate the big box checkout experience with the customer performing their own transaction, something that a lot of merchants love. Now let's talk about access. One feature merchants love is remote administration and device management. Using cloud-based software, merchants have the ability to provision each customer engagement device from one central location, basically any internet-connected device. This saves them time, which is one of the most important things to a business owner. Everyone on this call certainly knows that. It's probably sick of hearing it. Merchants also have access to the Genius Solution Center, which is essentially an app store marketplace where they're able to select and manage all of their payment needs. Instead of merchants going to multiple places to manage their programs, they will have access to all of them under one roof, yet again, saving them time. Also, Genius will future-proof your merchant's payment acceptance, help your merchants eliminate the endless hardware swaps and associated downtime while supporting current and future payment acceptance requirements. Merchants have so many things to worry about associated with running a business. With Genius, accepting payments isn't one of them. It's our job to ensure they have access to cutting-edge payment solutions and payment partners, not theirs. Then let's talk about growth. Genius is also a business growth machine that can actually help merchants gain new and repeat customers. One of the ways it can do this is with customer acquisition and retention programs, which allow your merchants to leverage our platform partners for tailored loyalty, rewards, and coupons and offers that fit their specific needs. This allows merchants to get rid of the old buy one or buy 10, get one free cards and digitize these programs. With certain payment partners, they have the option to actually push coupons and offers directly to the consumer's phones that can then be redeemed seamlessly at the point of sale. Also, these loyalty programs offer marketing and advertising programs, help your merchants invest their time, effort, and money on programs that enhance the customer experience. And this is a scalable solution that will evolve with your merchants, with customizable payment acceptance, mobile commerce, and location-based controls instead of a one-size-fits-all solution that isn't optimized for their business. So now we'll kind of talk about the features that relate to Genius. So in its simplest form, this is a customer-facing device with built-in PIN debit and signature capture. This is just like when you go to check out at the grocery store, CVS, Walmart, Target, any of those big box national chains. This emulates that experience with a customer-facing device. But ours can do a whole lot more. Of course, like I had mentioned, this can accept all of your current and future payment partners. This can also accept EMV cards as well as NFC-enabled payments. We'll touch on those a bit more. And of course, you can utilize BinSmart, which is PIN steering. We'll touch on that in the next slide as well. Merchants are also able to accept QR-based applications, digital signature capture, which has some distinct benefits. First of which is the fact they'll have electronic access to all their receipts. So not only will they not have to print a second receipt, reducing their paper needs, they won't have to deal with the storage of them, which will ease in the event of dealing with a chargeback. Plus, customers would be signing on the screen, which will add to a better experience at the point of sale. Of course, Genius merchants are able to accept gift cards. For certain merchants, they'll be able to offer retail with tip right on the customer engagement device. And Genius merchants are also able to offer cash back. Best of all, this is all controlled by cloud-based software with remote device management, making things easy to handle no matter where your merchants are. Now let's touch on BinSmart for a sec. So BinSmart is a feature that is exclusive to Merchant Warehouse and Genius, and this is something that can help your merchants realize actual savings. Maggie, I remember, was speaking with a particular merchant who actually was realizing about $500 a month in savings after switching to Genius simply from the PIN steering. So, one question that comes up often, do your merchants know when it's more cost effective for them to run a debit card with a PIN or as a credit card? You guys know you're always prompted to do that. You can swipe your debit card and then either enter a PIN, run it as PIN debit, or you can run it as offline debit. Different costs are associated with each transaction, and depending on the merchant's rates and fees and the amount of the transaction, some can be cheaper. Genius will actually recognize that card as a debit card, will take into account the merchant's rates and fees and the size of that transaction, and then route the transaction in the most cost-effective manner for the merchant. It will all do this in a split second right on the customer engagement device. This is a great way to give your merchants immediate cost savings utilizing intelligent PIN steering. So this is something you can actually tell your merchants with the same rates they will save money if they're seeing a good amount of debit cards. That is guaranteed. BinSmart is also exclusive to Genius. And one question that does normally come up regarding BinSmart, say that the consumer is prompted to enter a PIN and they'd rather run it as a credit, they are able to do that right in the CED as well. Genius also accepts EMV. This is a huge hot button in the industry right now and something that is certainly coming to the U.S. So if you guys look at this map, it's pretty obvious that we're the late adopter here. Everywhere else in the world is using EMV besides us, and it's coming here. I right now have 2 EMV cards in my wallet, my personal cards. They're being issued. Bank of America, Chase, Citi, and American Express are all out there issuing these cards, so they're coming. The reason the U.S. has been lagging behind is just the sheer number of terminals and cards we have. and the time and money it's going to take to convert them all. Right now, there's over 1.55 billion EMV cards in circulation, and that number is climbing every day. Unlike the way we pay today, EMV card is not swiped through a reader like a traditional mag stripe card. Rather, it's inserted into a slot on the POS terminal. When the chip card is presented to the terminal, it will select an application on the chip to run, perhaps a gift or credit card application, and that application works with a number of controls that the credit card issuer can put on there. They could basically say someone with poor credit, Dave's got it right there. Yeah, they can basically make it so someone with poor credit can't run a transaction over $200. They could also put something on there saying on any transaction under $20 doesn't require any authentication. So keep in mind, this is all done in real time right on the countertop before going out for authorization. The benefits being speed of sale and definitely increased protection. There's been a couple things that I've read stating, if EMV was in place, none of these major breaches would have been as bad. I can't say that for sure, but it is something your merchants are going to have to deal with. Every single card-present merchant, if they're not able to accept EMV transactions by October of 2015, they are going to be subject to paying for any fraudulent transactions. Trust me, your merchants don't want to do that. Another hot button in the industry is NFC. And most people, especially with the Super Bowl coming up this weekend, are thinking National Football Conference, but NFC stands in the payments world for near-field communication. This was developed by Sony and NXP Semiconductor. This is a major driver for mobile payments. Basically, NFC is going to allow embedded chips in separate devices to communicate with each other when they're in close proximity. Whether or not you're familiar with NFC, you've probably used the technology by passing data during a contactless credit card transaction, work ID badges, and even some hotel keys. Genius is able to accept NFC payments by just tapping them right on the glass. And of course, NFC adds speed and convenience to the transaction and allows merchants to entice consumers right at the point of sale. We're really just beginning to see the possibilities of what NFC can do, and with the coming advancements over the next few years, NFC payments will become even more appealing. Right now as well, ISIS is estimating that there's over 20 million NFC-equipped smartphones in the market right now, and they're shipping millions every month. Basically, all the new Android smartphones are coming equipped with an NFC chip. We're very curious to see what Apple's going to do. Genius also accepts mobile payments. As you can see on the graph, people are adopting mobile payments at a pretty astronomical rate. If you think about it, our society is so connected with their smartphones, the adoption of mobile payments will naturally grow. Many merchants view mobile payments as something out of the future, but the fact of the matter is they're here now and they're not going anywhere. Every person sitting in this room with me purchases their lunch and coffees on their smartphone almost every day. We're not the only ones. Genius is able to accept both NFC-enabled payments as well as QR-based applications, enabling your merchants to accept whatever their customers' phones throw at them with ease. And with all the mobile wallets and payment applications on the market, it's pretty tough to forecast which one's going to emerge the winner. With Genius, you don't have to, as merchants will have the choice of which ones they'd like to offer that makes the most sense for their unique business. So now, let's talk about merchants. Who's a good target for Genius? Where have we had the most success? And basically, any brick and mortar merchant that has an IP connection that's going to swipe their transactions, this is certainly going to make sense for them. Also, any merchant who wants to stay ahead of the emerging technology in the payments industry, to kind of bring that into perspective, my parents are merchants. My father's got a couple jewelry stores, and they're old school. They were using NERC 2085s for as long as you can imagine. And when I got into this industry and started talking about all the stuff that's happening, he really, said, I don't know what to do about any of this. He said, luckily, I've got you taken care of. But it's something to really keep in mind. Our industry, over the next few years, your merchants are going to see so many things thrown at them. This is going to help them out. Of course, any merchant who wants to prepare for EMV acceptance, this is an EMV-ready solution. Any merchant who wants to accept mobile payments, and definitely any merchant with a younger demographic, any type of a tech-friendly business, and proximity to a major city, college, or university, those are the merchants that are going to see the biggest adoption right off the bat. If you're in any type of a financial district or a college area, you're going to see immediate adoption of mobile payments. And then let's talk about actual verticals where we've seen the most success. Of course, retail storefronts, they love Genius. The customer-facing device is exactly what they're looking for. QSRs, your quick-serve restaurants, extremely hotly contested area of the industry. Everybody wants those accounts. Tons of low transactions equals lots of residuals and not a lot of risk. This is a perfect solution for those. Also, a lot of our loyalty partners definitely cater to QSRs. For a full-serve restaurant, a sit-down fine dining restaurant, I'll tell you guys right now, this is not going to be the best solution in its current state. Not to say we're not working on a pay-at-the-table solution, so stay tuned for that. Doctors and dentists tend to love Genius, as well as amusements and attractions, convenience and grocery. Pharmacies, really, this hits home with mom-and-pop pharmacies. If you think of their main competition, CVS, Rite Aid, Walgreens, they all have that customer-facing device. People want that. And of course, liquor stores, this fits right in. Basically, any type of environment where there's someone on one end of the counter and the consumer's on the other, this really facilitates that transaction. So a couple questions that we found really help to get the ball rolling. What are you doing to maintain PCI compliance? It's a huge issue in the industry right now and something that merchants really need to take advantage of. With Genius, this takes advantage of it for them. It's our job to make sure they're PCI compliant. Another one, have you ever thought about accepting PIN debit? It's a great way to get the ball rolling and talking to them about cost. A lot of merchants don't realize the difference between PIN debit, online debit, or offline debit. Did they realize that by accepting, you can actually save money on certain transactions by doing so? Then you get to talk to them about the BIN Smart feature. Have you done anything to prepare for EMV acceptance? There's a good chance they haven't. This will help them out. This takes care of it and something they don't have to worry about. Do you offer any loyalty or rewards programs? Yes or no, they should. Customers love gaining rewards and incentives, and it's a phenomenal way to drive repeat business, which every merchant wants. I actually was just reading an article about how 20-somethings of the world, about how incenting them with loyalty and rewards is really the main way to reach them. That's a big demographic your merchants are going to be going after, so definitely something to bring up with them. Does your competition offer them? Because if they offer them, you're already behind the 8 ball if you're not. If they don't offer them, that's a distinct competitive advantage for your merchant where they can gain a leg up. And then a great one, if you're familiar with mobile payments, you've heard of them, do you have any idea how to integrate them with your current system? Because they probably don't. Get that customer engagement device on the countertop and you're set. So how does this benefit you, our Keystroke resellers? So it enables you to offer exclusive technology and future-proof your merchants. Take advantage of a true competitive advantage by offering this cutting-edge technology that's exclusive to Merchant Warehouse. Genius will protect your merchants from future payment aggravation. This is a huge thing. With all the headaches with adapting with your merchants and their ever-changing payments landscape, ensuring your merchants are covered for anything and everything down the road. Genius also makes sure your merchants and their customers have an increased sense of security with a fully PCI, PTS, PED, EMV, any other 3-letter acronyms you guys can think of, compliant solution. Again, we take security very, very seriously. And of course, be seen as a solutions provider and build long-lasting relationships with your merchants. I know this is something you guys already do as a point-of-sale reseller, but definitely being able to offer all of these additional services as well really helps solidify more value with you. So now let's talk about why it appeals to your merchants. So of course, just the customer engagement device alone gives customers options that they're used to. Of course, digital signature capture capability, able to sign right on the screen, reduces the need of the second receipt and aids in the event of a chargeback when locating receipts. PIN debit with PIN steering. This makes sure however that customer wants to pay, if they want to run that debit with a PIN, they're able to do so, as well as the fact your merchants will realize savings on those transactions. And of course, customer-facing device that will emulate that big box store checkout experience. Keep in mind, these features are not available without Genius. Now, we'll talk about compliance. Helping merchants maintain compliance and avoid a breach and all of the things that go along with it. Thousands in fines, brand damage, which is probably worse than any of it, and of course, the countless hours that this is going to cost your merchants in providing documents, filling out forms, and dealing with this. You know, we spoke about this before. Time is money. We've heard this so many times throughout our lives. Save your merchants time. They'll love you. And help them avoid the costly non-compliance fees that can add up to hundreds annually. With Genius, this is a certified PCI compliance solution. And then with EMV, this is going to reduce card present fraud. This will remove keystroke POS from the scope of PADSS. That is a huge advantage for you guys. And of course, the card or phone will never leave the customer's hands. Point-to-point encryption and tokenization for all transactions. Make sure that every transaction is as secure as humanly possible. And of course, the sensitive cardholder data never passes through the system. So basically, Dave has already shown you guys the customer-facing side, so we'll kind of show you that again. We've got your merchant-facing keystroke system, and then customer-facing. Currently, they would receive a Verifone MX915. That is the customer-facing CED, or customer engagement device. That's where the consumer would be swiping the card or inserting the card, tapping the phone, whatever way that they want to pay. And then if they choose to use a payment partner who accepts QR codes, we would ship them out that Motorola DS9208 scanner to read the QRs right on the phone. Altogether, those pieces of equipment, this ends up costing, if you went out on the market to buy that, upwards of $800. For you guys, we include that in the setup. So that is what we had for you guys. So pretty good stuff. I'm sure there's going to be a couple questions, so Dave can facilitate those to us, and we can kind of answer anything you guys are curious about. But of course, we're jumping on, taking the time. Thank you guys, of course, for sitting through the presentation. But Dave, of course, any questions that came through, don't hesitate to ask.
So a very nice presentation, Jason. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, guys? I know you've seen this before, or seen a rendition of it before, but this one has a little bit more detail.
Everybody can hear us, right? Okay.
What's that?
What is our cost on this?
Oh, it's $19.95 per month. So as Jason was saying before about this merchant we had who actually was utilizing the PIN steering technology, and over a span of 3 months, he found that he was saving $500 within his, in the 3 months that he started using Genius. He was already seeing the savings there. So it's, it's an additional cost, but it's certainly a value-added solution that you can sell.
Yeah, and if your merchant is seeing, a decent amount of debit cards, just the savings alone in the PIN steering will offset that $19.95 fee easily. Also, that merchant is not going to be charged a PCI fee. So if you think about that, our PCI fee annually, our compliance service package, is $99. So if you take that off the top, that really helps justify that fee a lot more. Essentially that breaks it down to $140 for the year. And that savings alone is going to get made up with the PIN steering.
And it might be small, but with the digital signature capture, you're saving on receipt paper and by about half. So, I mean, I know some of those thermal papers can be kind of pricey.
And of course, that appeals to merchants that want to be green. We all have that inner hippie that we hate wasting paper, and that's appealing. Merchants do tend to like that option a lot. The fact that it's not, costing them paper, it's not hurting the environment. They like that.
I think one of the most important things to highlight as well is while there is a monthly charge associated with it, as Jason just highlighted the cost of the equipment, we don't charge anything for that to go out the door. So just like any normal account set up with us, there's zero cost to get set up with the solution. It's simply the fee that comes in on a monthly basis. But to get that on their countertop, no dollars go out of their wallets.
Is there some kind of a formula base as to whether, when is it cost effective to run PIN debit or PIN steering versus just general credit card processing?
So when you think in terms of the cost associated with processing a debit card versus a credit card, just think in terms of the way a merchant account is priced. Typically it's a percentage and a fixed cost per transaction. Now for debit cards, the fixed cost is typically higher than with a credit card. So if you're talking about a $5 sale, and if you run that card as credit, say it's 2.5% of the sale and 3 cents, versus 0.5% and 25 cents. Well, at that point, it's cheaper to run it as a credit card because that fixed cost is prohibitive going that direction. In terms of the math that's put into BinSmart, much smarter folks than myself are obviously putting that stuff together. But the concept is simple. Does the fixed cost prohibit you from running a card in such a manner, or does that percentage prohibit it? So $100 transaction, if it's only going to cost me 0.5% and 25 cents, clearly that's cheaper than if I ran it at 2.5% and 3 cents.
Got it.
Yeah, and it will actually make that distinction right on the countertop. It really depends on how that merchant is priced out, where the shifting point is, and Genius will take into account the rates and fees they're set up with.
Okay.
Yeah, that's been one of the most resonating points with merchants. Saying something along the lines of, this thing is smart enough to figure out what's the cheapest way to run that debit card for you. That's something that merchants have really taken to.
So the Genius does the math for you?
Genius does all the math for you in a split second. As soon as that card is ran, Genius already has the amount of the transaction on there. It's going to calculate, it's going to say, hey, that's a debit card. Hold on a sec. Let me crunch these numbers as fast as a computer crunches numbers, and then whichever is going to be more cost effective for the merchant is what's going to pop up on the screen. Then again, if that consumer decided, hey, I don't want to do it that way, I want to run it the other way, they can veto that on the screen and go to the other option.
Got it.
Yeah, that's one of our definitely, for merchants, that's one of the most resonating points. They really, merchants want to save money, especially when it comes to our industry. They tend to focus on price more than anything else. This is a great way. You can literally tell them, if you're paying interchange plus 20 and 10 with these guys, you bring your interchange plus 20 and 10 to us, it's going to cost you less in your wallet.
And I think Jason covered it in the webinar, but this is something that is proprietary to Merchant Warehouse. So this BinSmart technology is only available through us. It's technology that we created.
Okay.
What happens if one of these units goes down? Where's the replacement housed, and how fast can it get to a merchant site?
So, you'll obviously have to call in, report that, or the merchant would, and then we can drop ship you a terminal. So you'd get it within 24 hours.
Is the customer still able to manually, type in the customer's information at the terminal if the Genius goes down?
Like if say the card has a bad mag stripe in our current ecosystem, something along those lines, where they still need to be able to key enter that sale?
Correct.
Gotcha. So that's typically a product of the software, and there are fail-safes built into the Genius solution in the integration that was completed by Keystroke. So I guess I'll defer to Dave on that question. You guys have the key backup built in, correct?
Dave?
Probably.
Oops, I was personally muted there because I didn't want you to hear me sniffling while I was sitting here. But
there he is. Okay.
But the answer is yes. That is built in, and we've got a merchant right now doing that, and it's working real well.
Okay, good.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Alan from A&B.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, Bonnie. A question. If a customer has 3 terminals on a counter, 3 of the Genius devices, or can they share one?
Actually, they can share one if they'd like to.
Okay.
It's however the store wants to set it up, but yeah, 2 computers can talk to the same device.
Okay, that's what we wanted.
Each Genius device will have an IP address on your network. So you basically just have each terminal saying it's going to whatever Genius is closest.
All right, that's kind of what we thought, but we just wanted to clarify it.
All right. Any other questions here? Well, I'd like to say something about Merchant Warehouse. One thing I really like is Merchant Warehouse shares profit and revenue on statement fees, PCI fees, card fees, anything that's part of the profit equation, they share with with you, the dealer. So it's a good model on how those residuals are structured, and I'm impressed with Merchant Warehouse doing that. And then we've got there is a payment providing company called ISIS that is doing mobile payments on your smartphone, and we're working with Merchant Warehouse right now to get that up and going. So stay tuned for more information on that. And if you need to get in touch with Maggie or Ian, would be your contact people. Maggie, do you want to say what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Sure, and I can send out a communication after. The contacts are actually Colin Toomey and Melanie Gard. Melanie works with the southern states, Colin with the northern states. And but obviously I'm always a contact that you can reach out to as well. And I'll send out a communication to you guys after with just everyone's information. Most of you should be familiar with either Mel or Colin at this point.
Great. Well, go ahead.
Sorry, Dave. One other thing I just wanted to throw out there for everybody is just keep in mind as well, if that merchant, they've got, if they're an old school merchant, they don't trust technology as much, they've got a couple terminals sitting around that they want to have just in case, we can reprogram those at no cost if they already own them. If they want to buy a machine, we can set them up with that as well. If they want to accept on a website, mobile, whatever, basically any other aspect of their business, we can set them up to process through that method as well. So I always like to throw that out there, anything beyond the solution that your merchant needs, we can help them out with that. We're certainly full service in the payments industry.
All right, great. Well, thank you everybody today for attending. We ran a little bit over, but Jason, it was a great presentation. Maggie and Ian, thanks for tagging along too. And tune in next week for Michael Gebb and his First Wednesdays. Have a great weekend and a good February.